pornography atrophies the brain, this is not an exaggeration, it is science. Neuroimaging studies have shown that excessive consumption of pornography can alter areas of the brain linked to motivation, self-control, and pleasure, such as the prefrontal cortex and the reward system. Even knowing this, why is it that in those moments of boredom, frustration, or stress, we still find ourselves repeating the same pattern? Why, even after deciding to stop, do we go back? Why are we capable of insisting on something that we know takes us away from the life we want to build? This is a heavy question, a hole into which many of us fall silently. And to begin to understand, we need to take a few steps back. Have you ever wondered why harmful things often seem so irresistible? Why do we prefer fast food to a healthy meal? Or video games instead of studying or working toward our goals? The answer lies in our most ancient instincts. Back when we still lived in tribes, finding something caloric like animal fat was rare and vital for survival. That's why our brains evolved to release a flood of dopamine when we found something like that. It increased the chances that we would seek out that resource again. But this mechanism, which was once adaptive, has now become a trap. If a rare pleasure was once an occasional privilege, today it is just a click away. And our brains, designed to seek these peaks of pleasure, are completely unprepared to deal with abundance. With pornography, it goes even deeper, because it triggers the most primitive system of all, the sexual system. And while you're there, in your room, thinking you're just relaxing, your brain believes it's in the middle of an orgy, a reproductive party that would never exist in the real world. The problem is that, evolutionarily speaking, our ancestors probably saw about 30 to 50 naked bodies in their entire lives, on average, within a small tribe. Today, that number is exceeded in less than a minute scrolling through your phone screen. And this sensory overdose not only disrupts the brain, it's addictive. Because with each new stimulus, the same content is no longer enough. What was enough before is no longer enough. It's as if we're burning out our pleasure sensors through overuse, and the result is devastating. Not only for our mental health, but for our perception of people, relationships, and, above all, ourselves. It seems absurd, but it's true. The same mind that should protect us is, little by little, pushing us into a state of dissociation from reality. The more pornography we consume, the further we are from the world as it really is. We begin to see everything through a sexualized lens. People become objects, everyday situations become triggers, and the innocent gaze of a child is lost when they accidentally stumble upon content they should never have seen. Do you remember how old you were when you were first exposed to pornography? Today, children come into contact with it around the age of 11, according to the Brazilian Society of Pediatrics. And the earlier this exposure happens, the more deeply it affects emotional, cognitive, and affective development. This is because the brain is still forming, and the patterns it learns there will be difficult to break later on. Over time, what was once just an image becomes an abyss. A simple video is no longer enough. Something more intense, more specific, more bizarre is needed. And it doesn't take long before what is consumed no longer has any connection to real sex. Pleasure becomes a product. Intimacy becomes a spectacle. And what remains of naturalness is lost in a sea of distortions. This vicious cycle, fueled by the relentless search for stronger stimuli, compromises our ability to feel pleasure in simple things. Everyday activities such as talking, going out with friends, or even having real relationships lose their luster. It's as if nothing else is enough. The brain, now conditioned to dopamine rushes, rejects anything that doesn't deliver the same high. And the scariest part? It doesn't differentiate between the real and the virtual. For the brain, there is no distinction between watching pornography and actually living that experience. This means that with every click, we are reinforcing neural pathways that associate pleasure with an illusion and completely ignore the emotional needs that only a human connection can fulfill. And we're not the only ones. In nature, reproductive behavior is one of the most powerful. The frogfish, for example, goes to the extreme of fusing itself to the female's body to ensure constant reproduction. And if that analogy seems exaggerated, think about it. When we're addicted, don't we also act in an exaggerated way? Any shape, any curve, any slight stimulus already draws us in. Everything becomes sex. Everything becomes escape. And that erodes something that goes beyond pleasure. It erodes our sense of presence. Because porn addiction isn't just about pleasure, it's about absence. Absence of purpose, of attention, of connection. It's the most accessible emotional anesthesia that has ever existed, and also one of the most destructive. And when all of this becomes routine, it's not just the pleasure that disappears, it's you. Thinking about sex all the time isn't natural, it's exhausting. It's as if your mental energy is being sucked out by an invisible force that takes control of your focus, your willpower, and your clarity. Suddenly, you find yourself a passenger in your own mind, guided by impulses that seem uncontrollable. Pornography ceases to be entertainment and becomes anesthesia. It becomes an escape valve, and therein lies the danger. Porn addiction, like any other addiction, is a cry from the body and mind trying to regulate emotional pain. It's not just desire, it's desperation. And as a society, we still fail miserably to treat that desperation seriously. When someone says they've been sober for 10 years, they get applause. But if they say they're trying to quit porn, what they get is silence, judgment, maybe even a joke. Porn addiction is invisible, but that doesn't make it any less real. On the contrary, this invisibility makes the struggle even more lonely and dangerous. And then, without support, despair sets in. You turn to miracle cures, quick fixes, promises of instant liberation. You cling to the easy-peasy method, no FAP, 30-day promises that will change your life. And sometimes they work, for a while. But the problem isn't just the habit, it's the mindset. And when you feed this process with haste and desperation, you're digging yourself even deeper into the emotional trap. Because what happens when you relapse after a week of victories? Shame sets in, internal judgment sets in, and that only feeds the cycle of pain that brought you here. That's why quitting isn't a moment, it's a process. There is no forever, there is now. You can only resist today. Don't think about tomorrow. Don't blame yourself for yesterday. Addiction is not overcome with anger. It is not overcome with punishment. It is overcome with presence, patience, and compassion. You must recognize that what started as curiosity became a refuge and then became a prison. And if there is one thing you need to understand urgently, it is that porn addiction is not about sex. It is about emotional pain. It is about emptiness. It is about a desperate attempt to fill something that cannot be resolved with pleasure, but with meaning. And that is where the cruelest trap lies. The more desperate you become to get out of it, the more hostage you become. It seems contradictory, but that is exactly how it works. Pornography does not trap you only because of the pleasure it offers, but because of the temporary relief it provides from an internal suffering that you often cannot even name. Notice the language of those who are stuck in this cycle. I want to quit permanently. Last hope. I can't waste any more time. These are the words of someone who is suffocating. And when the fuel to get out of an addiction is despair, relapse is almost inevitable. Because despair, although strong, is unstable. It can propel you for a day or two, but all it takes is a better moment, a small emotional respite, and the impulse disappears. And when it disappears, the addiction returns with full force. What you need to understand is that pornography, like any other addiction, is not, in most cases, motivated by sexual desire. It is a mechanism for emotional regulation. A study published in the Journal of Sexual Medicine revealed that the main triggers for pornography consumption are negative emotions such as stress, loneliness, anxiety, and sadness. It's as if the brain is saying, "I'm not okay, I need immediate relief." That's why it's common for someone to go days or weeks without using, until a stronger emotional event, a breakup, a fight, a feeling of failure, triggers it all over again. And the conditioned mind runs to the same old hiding place. Pornography in this context is just a symptom. The cause lies in how we deal with our emotions. So how do you stop? It's not with a solemn promise that this time it's forever. It's with a more humble, quieter, more present commitment. Not to watch pornography today. Just today. Change happens in the now. It's like getting sober from alcohol. You don't stay sober for a year. You stay sober for today. And tomorrow you try again. But to do that, you need new tools, new ways to regulate your emotions. Because pornography was indeed effective at that. It was your most powerful anesthetic. And any other alternative will seem weak at first. Whether it's meditating, walking, talking, exercising, writing, breathing deeply, nothing will give you the same immediate relief. But that's the trap. The easy destroys. The difficult transforms. The mistake is in underestimating how much your mind has specialized in addiction. It is at level 900 in masturbation and level 1 in conscious breathing. But it is with patience that you climb the right levels. Every time you choose the difficult, you reprogram your brain. And that, over time, is liberating, remember? At the root of it all are emotions. Regret about the past, fear of the future, anxiety in the present. Pornography acts as a powerful painkiller for these feelings. So the first thing to do is not to get rid of pornography, but to learn to deal with these emotions in a mature and compassionate way. When you decide to stop, your brain screams. It wants dopamine. It wants distraction. And above all, it hates boredom. Boredom, incidentally, is one of the biggest catalysts for relapse. When you have nothing to do, your mind, addicted to stimulation, starts looking for alternatives. And it will remember what always worked, not because it was good, but because it was easy. That's why filling your day with activities that connect you to the real world is so important. Walking, exercising, studying something that really interests you, developing a personal project, or even observing the world around you more closely. All of these things help weaken your mind's automatic patterns. The more you occupy yourself with what strengthens you, the less room there is for what destroys you. But even in moments of pause, you can learn something crucial: to observe. When the urge comes, don't fight it right away. Observe. Feel the discomfort, see where it comes from. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? What is this desire trying to hide? What is going on inside me? This practice, which seems simple, is deeply transformative because it takes you out of automatic mode and puts you in control of your attention. And there's another point that can't be ignored: the digital environment. Expecting to break free from an addiction while surrounded by triggers is like asking an alcoholic to stop drinking in a bar. Your Instagram, your TikTok, your recommended videos, your feeds, all of these can be traps. And it's not a matter of willpower, It's a matter of emotional intelligence. Change what you consume. Take care of what feeds your mind. You are a reflection of what you consume every day. And in this hyper-connected world, it's naive to think that you can change your life while maintaining the same stimuli. Protect your eyes. Protect your attention. It's the most valuable asset you have. It's like asking a smoker to quit while they have a pack in their pocket. Porn addiction works the same way. It hides in your habits, your routine, the little permissions you give yourself throughout the day. And since this addiction often happens at home, where the environment seems harmless, you need to be extra vigilant, because it's not just about what you do, it's about what you allow to influence you. Notice how a moment of tiredness, a pause, a frustration is enough for temptation to appear, like a conditioned reflex. Sometimes it all starts with a harmless video, a suggestive image, and that's it. Your brain lights up that old path. But that's when you need to be alert. That's when awareness needs to kick in. Because it's not just about resisting, but about seeing what's behind that desire. And perhaps the most honest question you can ask yourself is, do I really want to stop? Because if deep down you still think that pornography has a fun and harmless place in your life, you won't quit. You need to decide what is more important, your immediate pleasure or your mental freedom, your illusory comfort or your real growth. Pornography is destroying your ability to focus, your motivation, and even your emotional sensitivity, but only you can choose what is more valuable. Think about it maturely. Is it really making your life worse? Is it keeping you from who you want to be? Is it preventing you from achieving your goals? If the answer is yes, then it's time to take action, without despair, but with determination, without shame, but with responsibility. Remember, this addiction started as a form of protection. It was your brain trying to defend you from pain, loneliness, and trauma. But now you have resources that you didn't have before. You are no longer that scared child. You can make decisions. So focus on today, on the present, because as long as there is life, there is the possibility of starting over. If this video touched you in any way, write a word in the comments that represents what you felt or learned. It can be freedom, strength, awareness. Choose one. It could be the beginning of your turnaround. And if this content made sense to you, like the video and subscribe to the channel. It shows me that it's worth continuing to produce reflections like this. And if you want to go further, consider making a donation of any amount to the channel.